Good evening, you're watching The Big Question. I'm Sanjana. If you've had a flight cancelled recently, or your summer holiday is suddenly in limbo, or if your refund is still processing with no one picking up the phone, I want to tell you, you're not alone. The travel system feels like it's failing yet again. A major airline crash that killed 270 people, hundreds of cancellations, and now rising geopolitical tensions. The Iran-Israel conflict are adding more chaos, airspace restrictions, rerouted flights, and global uncertainty. Fresh travel data paints a worrying picture. Let me take you through the numbers. New bookings have plunged by 30 to 35%, especially for international destinations. Air India alone has cancelled nearly 15% of its long-haul flights to Europe and the US. Last-minute changes are inflating package costs, stranding outbound travelers, or forcing them to reschedule. Even though Air India is offering full refunds and rebookings, the uncertainty is frustrating passengers. So tonight, we're asking the big question: where is the safety net for travelers? Why does the burden always fall on you, the traveler? To help us unpack this crisis and ask who's accountable, we're joined by Ravi Gosain, President, Indian Association of Tour Operators, speaking on behalf of travel businesses across India. Sachin Taparia, Chairman and Founder, Local Circles, with hard data from thousands of impacted travelers. Ashwini Kakkar, Director, TTPC, an industry veteran who's also seen this cycle repeat far too often. GS Baba, Secretary General, Air Travellers Association, pushing for stronger rights and safeguards for passengers. And Itisha Chauhan, Air Traffic Controller and Flying Officer, with the insider view on how airspace disruptions really complicate everything. So this is not just about delays today, viewers. It's about disruption, it's about accountability, and the urgent need for better systems to protect you. So let's get started. Ravi, we're seeing 30 to 35% drops in fresh bookings to long-haul destinations, with Air India's cancellations directly impacting tour plans. Travel agents say that they are firefighting rebookings and refund stress daily. So are we at a risk of a summer travel wipeout? And what kind of knock-on effect are you seeing on ground from agents to operators to customers?
Hi, thank you, Sanjana. This Air India mishap, or can say a tragic crash, was a very bad for tourism industry. I can say travel and tourism both. We are in the middle of high season when there are lots of travel out of India for holidays. And because now Air India has asked by DGCA for checks all Dreamliners. Today I got a letter from them that 26 out of 33 are cleared from DGCA to fly, but still they are cutting down on 15% of their services to Western countries. The problem with the travelers are, like, although they are providing free refunds or changes, but still, their plans are shattered. They have to look for new flights, and because the pressures are on other airlines, the prices are higher. So we see there will be a cancellation, and also people are worried on. We never heard from passenger asking for like what kind of aircraft it is, or what is the seat number, and all these kind of things. So there is a huge concern among travelers. We see this will remain for a couple of months, and I hope, although I just want to say that the air travel is the safest mode of travel. We have been traveling. There are 100,000 of flights every day around the world. So this incident should not be taken as like a major safety failure, but this shouldn't happen. I hope now DGCA and other authorities will tighten their grip on the security and safety for aircraft and the passengers.
Sure, because while operators are under pressure, passengers are even more so. Sachin, your latest community insights, and in fact we did show your report last evening. They show a spike in complaints, not just about cancellations, but also lack of transparency, helpline blackouts, and steep fare increases for alternatives. Is the biggest issue right now refund anxiety, or has it now shifted to affordability and trust? What's hurting passengers most according to your data?
So I think it is the anxiety and the uncertainty, Sanjana, that is affecting people. And we've been seeing, ever since last Thursday when the tragic incident happened, a rise in complaints, rise in, conversations about the subject, about flight cancellations, about different aircraft types that people should or shouldn't travel on. That's become a new subject. So we saw that, when we did the survey saying, what all do you look at before you undertake travel? Or you make a booking, in the next few months. One of the parameters that came out was 41% air travelers in India who responded to our survey said that they were actually looking at the aircraft type. This number, just to put in perspective, in 2022, when we had gathered data, it was about 10%. So you can imagine the anxiety that people have where they may have a booking, and because of this 787-8 incident, basically, they are saying, do I want to travel on this particular aircraft or not? If I'm traveling on this aircraft, can I, change my flight to a different, aircraft, different time, basically, to go to the same destination? So I think it's that uncertainty, that anxiety that is affecting a lot of people. And I think what will be needed to address that is data and facts, basically, that come out as a result of the investigation, saying, look, this is what the root cause was, so people understand exactly what it was, and then accordingly, they can make their plans, change their plans, do whatever with it. So that was, one very clear data point that came out.
Okay.
And of course the prices have increased. So if somebody wants to change from a Air India flight to an alternate carrier, or 787 to a 350, then when they go to other airlines, they are seeing a significant jump in fares, 10, 15, 20% increase in fares. So that is also affecting people, of course.
Ashwini, looking at the long view, this isn't just a one-off. COVID, Ukraine, now the Middle East airspace crisis. Every few years, outbound travel hits a wall. Do you think India's travel system is vulnerable? And if so, why haven't we built buffers, whether it's in terms of operations or infrastructure or even policy, to protect the traveler?
Well, as they say that if anybody in the world sneezes, I mean, the travel and tourism industry gets affected one way or the other. But there is definitely an increase in aviophobia. After this sad and tragic, crash that has happened, I think all the stakeholders in the industry are a bit jittery for the moment. And let me kind of take you through the stakeholders. I mean, the DGCA has obviously ordered a check on all 787 planes. So that is one side of the story. The operators are being doubly careful with checks, and obviously as soon as they find any hint or the slightest kind of trouble, they reschedule or cancel the flights as it should be. And customers in some instances are rescheduling and even canceling flights, not only of the 787 type of aircraft, but there are a whole slew of new reasons that are emerging. Obviously, if you look at the situation around the world, whether it's the Ukraine-Russia crisis, there is, that affects the travel industry hugely, because a lot of the planes cannot fly over those territories or even around those territories. Then the situation, obviously, in Gaza, the situation with Iran, and, the Israeli situation, these have also caused a lot of grief to the travel and tourism industry, because now, you have to go around all these locations and so on. And when all these factors are playing their role, I think there is bound to be delays. There's bound to be, further issues cropping up, both for the operators and for the customers. And obviously, we have to look at things from everybody's point of view. And in this kind of situation, I think it's better to get delayed than to get into a crazy situation. Either you're stranded at a different airport, or things don't work out for you. So I think let everybody be a bit extra cautious. And yes, if you reschedule your flights, things are very different because, the prices have gone up. And the prices have gone up not only because of that. I think the fuel prices in the last few days have gone up by almost about 12 to 15%. So even the operators are in a bit of a quandary. And I think if you take a holistic view, then I think the customers have to be a bit cautious.
Ashwini, I agree with that view, and I think that that's probably fair given that what happened with regards to the crash. And of course, even looking at airspace closures, it's important that things are dealt with in a meticulous way and investigations are done in a thorough way, which will, of course, require some patience, right, on account of all of the stakeholders. But I'm going to talk about rights now, because in Europe, if your flight is cancelled, compensation is automatic. In India, even refunds feel like a battle. Mr. Bawa, why don't Indian flyers have any real consumer protection, and what should be a non-negotiable in a passenger charter, especially in a crisis like this?
First of all, thanks to a very rich panel, and I endorse whatever the other panelists said. We are with them. I will come on that why the compensations are not paid, because it costs, and airlines probably have gone to the model which they are not able to afford upfront. But I must tell you, the checks which have been ordered, this should not create any kind of discomfort among the masses. Rather, they should build the confidence among the masses that yes, the every check is being done. And same way, when the airspace is closed, we know that airspace is closed, and there are alternate routes available, and airlines shall follow that airports. Now, coming to your question, why the airlines are not paying? You see, as per DGCA rules, airlines has to facilitate effective passenger due to cancellation and delay in flight accordance with the DGCA car order section 3, and as per which facilities to provided to passenger by airlines due to denied boarding, cancellation of flights, and delay in rights. So rights are there.
Okay, okay. So,
And granted to them is the question. And that is the problem. If there is a unified authority which is missing at present, whose door a passenger shall knock, airports, airlines, or third party, or the travel agent, he doesn't know, and that's why anyone makes benefit of that situation out of the whole system. And we had been raising our voice over the last 10-12 years. Air Travel Association is a 12-year-old organization, and we had been telling there shall be one unified authority. You call it a ombudsman, you call it a whatever name you give,
sure.
but I should know to whom I have to approach when there is a requirement. Now, coming to cancellations are very important. One should get compensation, but then you should also see the profile of travelers. I agree. All rightly, Ashwini sir said that people should stay at home when there is a crisis. But then, when we look at the airport, there are some leisure travelers. They can stay at home. But then there
Correct.
are business travelers who are paying higher wage. They have to travel.
Correct.
And then there are frequent travelers who are making the airlines their kitty fatter day by day. And then, of course, there are millennials and Gen Z. Their patience is very little. They don't have a patience, and that's why they are doing mass cancellation. So in that scenario, I think we should keep a tab on the dwell time, service parameters, better connectivity, better communication at the airport, and ATA keeps flagging that whenever we get an opportunity like this, scope of services should be enhanced day by day. We had been raising that last time when there was a panic at the airport, and we made big pressure to everybody, and the minister visited at the airport, and then he reprimanded all the authorities.
Okay.
And there was
So
a
Mr. Baba, what you're
solution
saying is
found
that
to
there
that.
needs to be this unified body, and maybe we need to look at the profile of the particular passenger, right? But even to define that criteria and those guidelines, there is a body or an association or even a committee that's needed. Itisha, your view is unique because you're in the tower when there is chaos or a crisis. So with airlines now rerouting to avoid the Iranian airspace, we've seen flight times go up, costs go up, all being borne by the passenger, and stress levels also surge. Passengers don't see it, but I think it starts with you. Can you walk us through what happens when airspace closes suddenly and how prepared or stretched are Indian carriers when it comes to route recalibrations like this?
See, basically, one is yes, whenever such kind of news happens, there is a NOTAM release. So it does not happen all of a sudden. It does give enough breathing time to the controlling agencies from ATC to everyone and to the airlines immediately. A NOTAM is released and then the airspace notification is declared that you are not supposed to be flying those air routes. So coming to the stress levels, one is, let me tell you, air traffic controlling is the second most stressful job in the world. So, and the aviation sector per se is a very stressful sector, and with professionals involved in it. So what goes on behind the scene is, yes, immediately plan, we always function with plan A, plan B, plan Charlie. So plan A, whenever the normal situation, but whenever such situation arises, we kick into plan B and we immediately take the actions. Accordingly, the airlines reschedule and airlines. There is a chaos. There is a little chaos because in Indian aviation sector, since the entire boom has happened since 2016. After new policies were formulated and Udan policy came, and then the aviation sector as such took a very big boom in India, and it could not reach out to satisfy the professionals in that sector adequately. So to counter that, what we would suggest is that right from DGCA to everyone, right now we have a lot of aviation professionals who are there, and their talent skills should be tapped upon, and all those talent skills should be aligned to aviation sector. And I come from the armed forces, and I would emphasize on this part more importantly because we have aviation sector professionals from the Indian forces, Indian Tri-Forces, and they can be utilized to the better skill, and this entire sector can be upgraded. It is very alarming when we find that DGCA, unfortunately, at very high levels, do not have aviation knowledge, or they do not come from aviation sector. In this sector, this is a very scientific sector, and it works according to the ICAO, that is international standards. So what I speak or what I do is according to what happens in the world over. However, we cannot rule out the local culture, the local traditions, the local way of mindsets of the travelers. So keeping all of that in view, it is important that, you know, we have right now, this is a dire need where we have only the aviation qualified people aligned to the sector.
Absolutely.
And utilize.
Absolutely. So people that have the relevant and the appropriate aptitude and the technical expertise that actually need to be in these positions. Great point made by Itisha. Before I go to the rest of, you know, my panelists that are joining me this evening, I'd like you to listen to some of the reactions that we got on ground from people that we spoke to about what they're feeling like when it comes to air travel. Let's listen into that.
The Air India maintenance has to be improved a lot, because even though I had traveled once or twice by Air India, and I had found that there are a lot of lacunas as far as the services are concerned. Earlier, it was under Government of India, but now it has been taken over by the Tatas, and people expectations are very high as far as the maintenance, punctuality and the quality of the services are concerned.
मेरा परसों ही मेरा बेटा गया चेन्नई, तो बोला कि एयर इंडिया की फ़्लाइट में मत जाओ। हम पहला क्वेश्चन किया कि भाई एयर इंडिया की मतलब दूसरी फ़्लाइट तुम चूज़ करो, क्योंकि इसमें कुछ ना कुछ प्रॉब्लम रहेगा कोई जानने वाला नहीं है। और बहुत सारे हमारे रिलेटिव्स भी गए तो हमको बहुत दुख हुआ कि एयर इंडिया ने क्यों इतना बड़ा लेके बैठा है सेटअप, तो क्यों नहीं चेक किया, इतनी जान गई है और पूरा मीडिया में आ रहा है, सोशल मीडिया में, तो हम दिन रात देखते हैं तो हमको बहुत दुख होता है।
और जो कोई भी एयरलाइंस होगी इस तरह से जो प्रॉब्लम रहेगा टेक्निकल और इतनी जाने जाएगी तो ऑब्वियसली कोई ना कोई घबराएगा। अभी मैं ही प्लानिंग कर रहा हूँ अक्टूबर में जाने के लिए मेरी बेटी के पास, तो सोच रहा हूँ क्या किधर इसमें जाऊँ उसमें जाऊँ कि नहीं जाऊँ।
Definitely, what Sachin and Ashwini were talking about in terms of, the anxiety around confidence and trust. Ravi, earlier we spoke about pressure on operators, but some are also saying that they're having to absorb costs because customers are unwilling to rebook at higher prices. Are operators now stuck between airline decisions and customer expectations? And are any carriers working collaboratively with you to share the load?
In fact, we are the one who are in between passengers and the airlines. And often when this kind of cancellation happens, the refund also comes through us if the ticket are booked through travel agents. And refund comes very late and passengers, they want to book a new ticket or new carrier. So there is a problem with the travel agent that if we don't support our agents, giving them credit or something, then we lose the passenger. And also like they already planned their holidays and they are in already a distress about these cancellations. So unfortunately, airlines, they do business, and it's very hard for us to convince other airlines to reduce prices or give some discounts on new tickets. So it's a really difficult situation for passengers, and at the moment, we feel very pity for the passenger at times because like in Europe, there are compensation clauses. Like if the flight is cancelled or not taking you on the confirmed ticket, they pay you 600 euros, up to 600 euros, depending on the distance. So I think this something like this could be there so that passenger feels safe flying.
Okay, so now let's shift focus to our country on the whole. Ashwini, this disruption has, in my mind, exposed our dependency on few national carriers, because even now flyers are comparing Air India fares with an Emirates and Etihad. Is it time for India to rethink its global aviation footprint? Are we over-reliant on one or two players, and what does a more competitive, resilient ecosystem look like then?
Actually, we do have a fairly good system in place.
Okay.
There are only a few big issues that have kind of cropped up in the last few couple of years. Let's say during the COVID period, every airline got rid of their planes because they didn't want to carry them, and under the Act of God clause, they got rid of whether they were leases or whether they were owned aircraft or whatever, and got the insurance companies to compensate them for those losses. Now, with the result, globally, there is a huge shortage of aircraft. And even in India, we have placed orders for more than 2,000 aircraft. But because Boeing has been going through its own issues and so on, and Airbus has limited capacity to produce as well. So what is happening is India is getting only a couple of aircraft every month. And that is causing, and in the manufacturer sector there's a clear duopoly. There's only Boeing and Airbus who provide these, especially these wide-bodied planes and so on and so forth. So I think this situation is likely to stay like this for a bit of a period. I think between 18 and 24 months, these problems will continue to exist with all our Indian carriers and also at a global level. And these are also likely to exacerbate the problem of high prices because the prices, obviously, the airlines are taking advantage of the situation and they are charging prices which are as high as possible because they want to make up for the COVID losses, they want to make up for other losses.
Sure.
And they are also being a bit extortionist may not be the right word, but they are being a bit greedy, I would say. So
Okay.
I think that is also one of the issues. But I think, as has been rightly pointed out, I think as far as India is concerned, three or four bodies, need to come together and make sure that, the global rules on compensation and other things are followed properly in India. And I think, maybe the DGCA needs to work on this. The Ministry of Aviation needs to work on this. Also, the consumer courts need to work on this. I think a collective solution which makes sure that in case a flight is cancelled, rescheduled, a customer goes through, inordinate delays and all of those things, the global level of compensation is paid to the Indian traveler and is paid in a timely manner. Not after 3 months and after 8 weeks and 12 weeks and 15 weeks and things like that. So I think these are two very important aspects, and we should take. On the other hand, the only thing I want to say is that airline travel is the safest mode of travel. It's even safer than just crossing the street outside your house. There are 30 million flights going every year. 30 million flights.
Right.
So I think, yes, this has been a very tragic, very sad incident. But I think airline travel is still safe. And one tip I have for the travelers is also please check if you have ever booked the ticket on your credit card. The credit card companies can also compensate you for some of these eventualities.
Okay, excellent tip there by Ashwini. I'm afraid we're completely out of time. I have one last question. I'm going to come to Itisha. We're watching flights rerouted mid-air, schedules reset overnight, and passengers often don't even get a reason why their flight is late or cancelled, right? A lot of times, I've personally experienced this myself, where there is a sign that was surreptitiously put up before you'd get an SMS. Can better tech or public communication tools help? Or is it real-time transparency about airspace and safety still too sensitive to share with passengers?
See, basically, the aviation sector is embracing all the technologies that are there, like AI or basically all the AIs and the other technologies, and there are various organizations that are trying to upgrade these technologies as well and putting out the better feel for experience for the travelers. But it is not that the certain information is withheld from the passengers, but we cannot rule out the human psychology here. So, I was reading about it, that how one pilot, unfortunately, when he was on his takeoff path on line-up point, he decided to not take off because he had anxiety attack. So these are human factors, and to keep all of those things in, because unfortunately at ground level, if somebody gets affected, that is not the intention of anybody in the aviation sector. So the information is passed on with a measured information is passed.
Right.
However, it is to cheat the end consumer. That intent has never been there. So
right.
Keeping everything in point of view, because there is a human factor, right, from the pilot in command to ATC to air crew to the passengers. So human factor is definitely taken care of.
Itisha, thank you so much for that. And you've just heard from 5 sharp voices, and the picture that all of them have painted is clear. A crash may have triggered the latest disruption, but what's truly grounded Indian travelers is a deeper issue. We need to come to terms with some rights, regulatory teeth, and some accountability. In moments of crisis, we don't just need airlines to respond, we need an entire system that recognizes the passenger. Until we build that, travel disruptions will keep costing us more than money, and they'll keep costing us trust. Thank you to our panel and to you for watching. Let's keep this conversation going on air and on the ground. This is The Big Question. Thanks so much for watching.